Badgers Gophers reaction show. Badgers come out with a W. We're going to talk about why Steven Crowl remains the key to this team.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, a victory edition of the post-game reaction show. The Badgers crushed the Gophers behind a dominant second half. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers, $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. This is Locked On Badgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Talking player of the game today. Three big things inside the box score. Badgers Gophers reaction show as the Badgers crush the Gophers behind a dominant second half. Let's jump on that line and get excited.
This is awesome. It's a good day for me. Come on in here, buddy. Get up on that line.
Yeah, it's always good to play the victory celebration. I want to start with we always do it, the good, the mid, the ugly, but we're going to start with what I teased at the beginning, Steven Crowl. I'm going to get to player of the game later, but Steven Crowl this is the version of Steven Crowl we've been begging for. And it's what I've been talking about. When he's good, when he's engaged, and people are right to be a little critical. I'm not going to blame anybody. People who listen to this show know, I've been pretty big on the Steven Crowl's a good player. People don't see what he brings to this team. But there was a stretch there. It was right for criticism. He wasn't playing well. He had 0 rebounds against Illinois. He was the best player on the floor tonight. And that, especially that first half where the Badgers struggled, Steven Crowl stirs this drink. When he's good, he's not the best player on the team, but when he's good, this team is so hard to beat. When he's engaged, this team is so hard to beat. And engaged doesn't have to be 18, 20 points. It doesn't have to be 16. It doesn't have to be 10 points. But when he's engaged, when he's fighting for position, it's almost like sometimes Steven Crowl, he's kind of delivering some body blows down there a little bit. He just softens it up when he's down there battling for stuff. He requires someone to actually put a body on him, which creates space for other players. He'll set screens. He creates spacing on the team because they talked about it. You either got to double him down low, unless you're playing a dominant big man. You got to double him down low, and the Gophers didn't, and he took it to him. Another super efficient night from Steven Crowl. And in the first half, he was a big reason why the Badgers were up 1 heading into halftime, because they kind of sleptwalked through the first half, which we're going to get into. But Steven Crowl's the key to this team. He's been to the key to this team for a long time. All right, let's talk good, mid, and bad. The good is that second half. That second half energy, that second half execution, clean things up on the defensive end. The second half, this team blew the doors off the Gophers. Absolutely blew the doors off. At one point, that was a 33-31 game. It felt like I texted Rajiv. We're like, man, this feels like a game. This is the type of game you shouldn't lose, but you might. This is tense. And then they went on a 41-14 run. Hit a bunch of threes, got into the paint, and then the Gophers just discombobulated. That's a terrible team. How is Minnesota? Listen, I shed no tears for it, obviously. How are they that bad? That's an atrocious basketball team. And credit the Badgers. You take apart atrocious teams, right? You put them on the operating table, you dissect them, and you don't leave them in one piece. That's what the Badgers did in the second half. They took that corpse of a Gophers basketball team apart, and they put the body away in different spots. Morbid maybe, but the Badgers, that's what you do to bad teams. You take them apart. But that's a terrible team. But the Badgers absolutely took them apart in the second half. 41-14 run. I thought some of it was just shooting. They missed some open threes in the first half. They shot 20-something% in the first half. They ended up shooting 39% for the game. Water finds its level. This is a good shooting team. They're not going to shoot. If they get decent looks, they're not going to shoot 20-something% back-to-back in both halves. They're just going to find their rhythm at some point. Let's talk about the mid. The mid was Nolan Winter was a little bit off to me tonight. I don't know what it was. The first half, he just didn't seem engaged. He didn't seem aggressive. He seemed a little passive. Now, I thought it got better as the game went on. I thought he started fighting a little bit more, getting in the paint a little bit more, slashing to the rim a little bit more, cutting a little bit more, looking for a shot. But it felt like for the first half, man, where is this guy that's been ascending? Where is this player that we've talked about? Winter is coming. Winter is here. It just felt like, I don't know what it was, whether offensively he didn't find his rhythm. If the Gophers did something specifically to try to take him out, I don't think that's the case, because I don't think the Gophers are good enough to do that. I just felt like he was missing in action, and I don't fully know why. The bad. Let's get to the bad. That first half start was bad. They were down 15-5 at one point, down 10 to a team that they have no business being down 10 to. That was fueled by a couple things. I thought there were a couple open looks. Tanjay in the corner. Blackwell had one. They missed a couple open threes that just kind of happened. But defensively, they weren't connected. And when I mean connected, when we talk connected defensive basketball, that means all the players are on a string. They're all moving as a cohesive unit, as an organism, right? They're all little cells inside of a defensive body where the pass goes to one spot, everybody kind of shifts and moves. That first half, the Gophers got multiple wide open shots, like wide open threes. It felt like we were lazy with our closeouts. Even on our isolation defense, we didn't get hands up. We had some issues boxing out. The Gophers kind of had I don't know if they took it to us on the glass, but they had 8 offensive rebounds in the first half. They certainly won that battle in the first half. I don't think it was lopsided, but they won that battle in the first half. And then defensively, again, we just weren't connected. We weren't connected to their shooters. It didn't feel like we were playing with energy. We got Tanjay. Listen, I don't think that was Tanjay's best defensive half in the first half. He got beat on a cut. I thought a couple weak side defensive issues where he was overhelping. Where one of the things that will happen defensively, sometimes players will overhelp where they're rushing over to help cut off kind of false penetration, false action that they don't really need to come over and help with, and that leaves their guy backside wide open. I thought the Gophers exploited that a couple times. It was just weird. It felt like the energy wasn't there. The execution wasn't there. Offensively, it felt like we were settling a little bit, a lot of deep threes. The Gophers came out pretty aggressive. They were hedging pretty hard, but there's ways to counter that. Like you can re-screen that action, go back the other way. You can split that. And just felt instead we kind of allowed the Gophers to take up our real estate and push us out, and we settled for some deep shots in the first half. That's fine against the Gophers to some degree because you're able to overcome. That's a bad team. You got to be careful about starting slow, starting 15-5 down at home against better teams because you're not going to dig yourself out of that hole all the time. So to me, that's the bad. Let's take a couple of your comments here, and then we'll get into the rest of the show. I'll go up to the top here. Old Rivers Farm. Why are the Rivers in up 30? I had the same thought. Their coaches have coached a long time, and every coach can tell you about a game where they pulled the starters too early and the other team hit a couple threes. They made it too close and they had to put the starters back in, and you just got to be sure of the win. I thought up 29, Tanjay, who tweaked it, looked like he tweaked his ankle a little bit early in the game. He landed on, I think, some friendly fire. He landed on one of his own players. I thought early in the game, or I thought at that point in the game, you could have gotten Tanjay out earlier. Kamari McGee was in until like the 2-minute mark. I thought he could have come out earlier, way earlier as well, especially considering you're already down. Cam Hunter was in a boot today. He was hurt. You're down. Obviously, Max Klesman is day-to-day. Tanjay banged up his ankle. It felt like a moment where you could have taken some of those guys out. Just me. But I agree with the Old Rivers Farm. I thought they could have taken some guys out a little bit earlier. Gary Hackney says, where was Hunter tonight? Great question. Cam Hunter was in a boot. And by the way, this is a comment from Seltganian, and this is what I was going to say, so I really agree with this. Cam Hunter can't catch a break. This would have been a game with Klesman out that you would have seen Cam Hunter. He was working himself back into it. He was dealing with an illness earlier this year, and now he's in a boot. He is a great kid. Let me tell you, having talked to him, he's a player that really appreciates being at Wisconsin. He is a great, great kid. That stinks. I feel terrible for him. Absolutely terrible for him. Yeah, he was hurt, unfortunately. That's why he was not in there. I still think they could have got some of the other guys out a little bit earlier. All right, we're going to take a quick break for friends of the show. We're going to come back, and I'm going to talk about the player of the game, and it's somebody that might surprise you. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at TurboTax. TurboTax are new friends of the show. Really excited for this sponsor because tax season is always so stressful. TurboTax is here to help stop the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about taxes. That's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be stressful because who wakes up excited to do taxes? Who wakes up and says, oh, I can't wait to get started on those W-2s and the expenses? I don't. But the folks over at TurboTax do because they're crazy good at it. That's why you got to go to TurboTax. TurboTax will match you with an expert who can get to work on your return right away and treat your return like their return. You get real-time updates on the progress so you can focus on what really matters. You don't have to lift a finger. Ready for stress-free taxes and get the most money back? Head over to TurboTax.com and get matched with your expert who's ready to take the taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available at TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Let's talk player of the game. Curious, put your player of the game in the chat over there. I'm I'm going Xavier Amos. Cannon L in the Discord, who's always talking up Xavier Amos, would agree with this. Listen, I talked about Steven Crowl already, and I don't want to double dip here. Steven Crowl was awesome. He was offensively aggressive. They couldn't handle him. But you know, the only player on this team tonight that could guard Dawson Garcia was Xavier Amos. That's it. Dawson Garcia was dicing everybody up. Nolan Winter couldn't handle. No, he was too quick for Nolan Winter on the perimeter, so he would drive Nolan Winter. Carter Gilmore couldn't handle him. Carter Gilmore's not quite big enough, athletic enough. Jack Janicki couldn't handle him. Again, not quite big enough, not quite athletic enough. I'm telling you, when Dawson Garcia saw anybody other than Xavier Amos guarding him, his eyes lit up. Like me and Black Friday. He got greedy, and he went to work. We couldn't stop him. I don't know if he missed a shot on Carter Gilmore. That's not a shot to Carter Gilmore. That's a bad matchup for Carter. Dawson's too big, too long, too athletic. Janicki couldn't stop him. Winter couldn't stop him. He would have been too big for Tanjay if you tried Tanjay there. But you put Amos on there. Amos has a unique defensive profile, a unique athletic profile. There's nobody on this team with Xavier Amos's length, his athleticism, his ability to guard a stretch four. That's what his body type is, right? It's a longer, athletic, a little leaner, a little quicker guy who can take that perimeter facing 4 or 5 guy, that 3 guy who can also drive, put it on the deck. When Amos is locked in, he can guard that body type, and there's nobody else on the roster that can do that. It was a great defensive game from Amos today. I loved he had a block. He got hands on a couple balls. He was working hard. He was walling up down in the post. He was closing out on the edge. He had a shot block in the corner on a defensive rotation. That was a great second effort by him. Hats off. Like that maybe hats stay off, because that was an awesome performance defensively. And if that's what we get from him, if that's what he can grow into, where he can be a bit of a versatile defensive switchblade, if he can be, it's like think of your grandpappy's toolbox, right? Old grandpa's toolbox. He had a tool for everything. Like, you have a leaky faucet, let me go get that tool. You got to fix a table, let me go get that tool. Defensively, the more tools that Greg Gard has in his toolbox that he can go to, if Amos can be another one of those tools that he can go to, that's huge. And him developing and him continuing to earn and carve out bigger minutes this year is going to be massive for this team. Now, I would say this. Offensively, still some work there. Right. And he still drives a little bit too much, I think. When he gets in the paint, he doesn't always know what to do. At times, he turns it over. He's a little too turnover happy, but we know he can shoot the ball. Wasn't a super efficient night tonight, but I liked him being a little more aggressive. We know he can stroke the ball, but defensively, he was great tonight. The only guy who could shut down Dawson Garcia. We're going to the chat. Let me see who else for you was your player of the game. Don't Badger Me goes Big Steve. Selgani said, like seeing flashes of Amos. Saldani said, good Crowl is just plus 18 on 6 of 7 shooting. Let's see who else in here, maybe a player of the game. Ben Powell, Amos D was good, still needs a lot of work on offense. Michael Selgeski, Amos had a long, long way to go on the offensive end. Maybe less Amos and a bit more Ilver. Listen, we're going to talk Ilver too, but I don't think we can gloss over what Amos was able to do tonight defensively. If he can give you that defensively and just space. Here's my thing with Amos. Just give us that defensively and then space the floor on offense. I don't know if I want him driving. I don't think that's his comfort level right now. I don't think it's where he's going to succeed in the Big Ten right now. But he's absolutely a floor spacer. He's somebody defenses respect. When you go watch how defenses guard us, they're definitely closing out on Amos. They're treating him as a shooter. So offensively, he gives you floor spacing. He gives you gravity. And that's a really valuable thing. And then on defense, if he gives you that, that's a really valuable piece, in my opinion. White Sox says, what year is Amos? He's a senior, but I think he has another year left. I'll have to check. Gosh, I think he has 1 year left, I think. Nate says, saw some comments that Tanjay was turning into a pumpkin, but 16 and 6 and 3, 7-8 from the free throw line. That's a good line. Yeah, Tanjay's not turning into a pumpkin. He's just playing better competition that now has seen the scouting reports, right? So they're going to load up on him a little bit more. They're going to make some other people beat him. But he is definitely not turning into a pumpkin. Like, he's tough. He's still getting to the line. He's getting teams in the bonus. Had a couple really nice passes today. Again, defensively in the first half, I didn't think he was great. But he's definitely not turning into a pumpkin. All right, let's get into the next thing. Three big takeaways from this game. Again, the slow start, the Badgers had started to get away from that. Early in the year, if you remember, slow starts were a thing. It felt like this team almost needed to get some game action to get the adrenaline going. I don't know what it is. Some teams have a penchant for starting slow, some don't. They have to clean that up. They got to clean that up. You can't, there's just, honestly, there's no excuse to be at home and come out down 15-5 against Minnesota. That's going to cost you against better teams. Next one, big thing here, mental toughness to rebound and finish the game. So you started slow. What are you going to do about it? There's a coaching term called NBA, which stands for, in the staff I was on, it just stood for next best action. What's the next best thing you can do right now? Well, you started slow. What's the next best thing you can do? Finish strong. This team mentally turned it on. They finished strong, and you get credit for that. Winning is you win. I mean, that second half they completely dominated, so you do get credit for that. And then the last big takeaway here, the last big thing I wanted to highlight is eventually this offense is too good to keep under wraps. Eventually, this offense is kind of like a raging river, right? So if you have this dam, and the dam was the Gophers in the first half, whatever. Eventually, that raging river just starts putting more and more pressure, and eventually something on this offense busts out. Something on this offense breaks through that dam because it's just there's too many options. There's too much shooting. There's the ability to play inside, outside. They're better in transition. They got multiple facilitators, multiple guys that can score in a variety of ways. Their actions are pretty good. Eventually, this offense just breaks out, is my other big takeaway. Like, you're not going to keep this team for 40 minutes. You're not going to keep them to under 50 points unless they just cannot find the rim whatsoever. Okay, let's keep going here. Find any more comments you have. Steve Kneebone says McGee is not being guarded at the three-point line. Yeah, like he's 3 of 5 from the three-point line today. Someone else I want to highlight, McGee is a starter, obviously stepping in for Klesmit today. 33 minutes, 15 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 3 steals. Him and Crowl would have been my bronze and silver for players of the game behind Amos. McGee's really good. I wish we had another year of Kamari McGee. He is really good. You can see him on the floor. He's a vocal leader. He gets after people. He plays hard defensively. He's a really, really good player and so aggressive. Like, he had 4 rebounds today, Kamari McGee. That's tied for second on the team today. He's the smallest guy out there, but he plays with heart. Like, playing hard is a talent. Like, playing with passion and energy consistently is a talent. That is a skill. A lot of players don't have that. They don't have that ability. And it's a mental thing. It's a toughness thing. It's an intangible thing. But that's a skill. That's a trait. That's a talent. Kamari McGee has that. He has that in spades. He plays extraordinarily hard. And that is infectious, especially when it's a guy who was from the state, who really cares about this program. Players look to that, and they're going to play harder because of a guy like Kamari McGee, because they see him trying on an offensive rebound to tip it in over a 6'11" forward. And while it's comical sometimes, they see that, and that's an inspiring action. Like, you need guys like that. Every winning team has a guy like that, or multiple guys like that. Kamari McGee epitomizes what the Bo Ryan teams were all about. And 33 minutes today, 3 of 5 from 3. Again, 3 steals. What a piece. What a piece to this team. All right, let's take a break there. I want to come back and talk about the depth of this team and a few box score thoughts, plus get your comments. That's next on Locked On Badgers. Specifically, I want to talk about what about the depth of this team is underrated. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs and information. They are awesome, right? Parlays, futures, teasers, spreads. It's all over on FanDuel.com. It's fast. It's simple. It's easy to use. The #1 sportsbook that we use on the Locked On Podcast Network, and the official sportsbook of the NFL for a reason. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, over at FanDuel. The app gives you everything you need. And again, I've talked about it. It's really easy to use. If you've never been on a sportsbook, it's easy to navigate. The GUI is simple. The user interface is simple. The customer support is awesome. If you win, it's incredibly easy to get your money back, to collect your winnings and your fun. That's the reason why Locked On uses these guys. That's the reason Locked On has continually partnered with FanDuel for all their sportsbook action. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the NFL for that reason as well. It is fast, simple, easy, great experience. As always, do it responsibly. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get some of your comments now. I've been talking a lot about this because it was a fun one. Pedro, I love this comment here. Perfect free tag mentor. Yeah, talking about Kamari McGee. What a point guard to learn from. I agree. A guy who had to grind for it, who loves the program, who puts others first. I think that is a really good mentor for free tag to see. Also nice to see free tag in the game today. That's a side benefit too. You blow out a team, you can get your number one point guard recruit. You can get 5 minutes at the end of the game. Those reps matter. That's a really valuable stretch of playing time for Daniel Freitag. So it was great to see him in there as well. Don't badger me. Poor Jack has to give up the ball in fast breaks. Love his effort, but the breakaways are forgetful. Yeah, there was a couple moments, man. I really like Jack Janicki. I think he's a unique piece on this team going forward because he gives you some versatility. He gives you some shooting. He has not been great in transition. Had a couple more opportunities this year or this game that did not go overly well. AJ says Amos and Gilmore can interchange. Winter and Crowl, Lesman and McGee, so many different combinations. This is awesome. This is a great point by AJ because that's where I was going with the depth. There's a lot of interchangeable pieces on this team. And what did we see today? We saw Nolan Winter with maybe not his best performance. We saw Klesman out. That's fine. You can put Kamari McGee in, and you have 3 guys in Kamari McGee, Blackwell, and Tanjay that can all initiate offense. They can all handle the ball. You saw Ilver come in and bang 2 threes. Ilver's a guy that Greg Gard's been talking about more and more. Obviously, Badger fans are very familiar with him, but he came in at like the 10-minute mark in the first half. So this is a player they're integrating into the real rotation. Like there's rotations and then there's real rotations. If you're coming in at the 10-minute mark, you're starting to kind of be in that real rotation. He hit 2 threes today, not in garbage time, and just pure shots. We know he can shoot. Can he contribute in the other ways? You're seeing depth on the wings with Carter Gilmore. Amos played better today. This is an 8-9 deep team that you feel pretty good about, 8-9 deep. And Klesman's a guy that was playing 30, 31 minutes a game, and they kind of didn't miss a beat today. And Klesman's a good piece. Like, that tells you the depth of this team. Now, Minnesota's really bad, but this team is deep. They have interchangeable pieces and versatile pieces. It's a great point by AJ. That's why I wanted to bring it up there. Mark Benson, Corral, 18 points, 6 of 7 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3, 5 rebounds. Like, he's been so good the last 5 games. He's been so good. He's been so good. He's so locked in right now. Whatever he's doing, whatever his routine is, if he can stay right here, just right here, and right here doesn't mean 6 of 7 every game, but right here with his level of locked in, his level of energy, his level of play, if he can just stay right here, there was a lot of little things Crowell's doing that I don't know if you see on the first pass. There was a play in the second half. Crowell was in the left baseline, about 8 feet away. He was covered. He scans the floor, throws a cross-court pass to the wing on the other side to Tanjay, who was rising from the corner. So imagine this in your head. Your baseline center, you got somebody on you. He whips that pass cross-court to a moving Tanjay, perfectly on target where Tanjay can fire the 3. That's a pass most 5s just can't make. It looks simple because Crowell's a really good passer. So Tanjay takes that 3, misses it, and then Crowell's second effort taps the rebound, fights for it. Winter gets the rebound, goes up, gets fouled. It's those type of plays, moving the ball, finding the open shooter, and then fighting for that rebound that gives the bad. That was a great possession by Steven Crowl. There's more and more of those moments during games where he's not scoring, but he's impactful as a center. But he's occupying space, he's setting up shooters, then he's fighting for a rebound. What happens if you have Crowl fighting for those rebounds? As a defensive team, now you have to box Crowl out. It's more energy. You're trying to box out a 7-footer who's fighting for it. That opens up the rebound to Nolan Winter, who got it and put it in. I'm telling you, I love what we're seeing from Steven Crowl now. Absolutely love it. Benson points out, 3 assist rebounds as well. Real assists, Crowell tips rebounds to a lot of others as well. Yep. Don't badger me. The fact that Max is out and we can perform like that, it's very encouraging. I agree. Now, again, let's make sure we keep it in context. You're never as strong as you look and never as bad as you look. There's always some middle ground. There's always context. Minnesota's really bad. That team may not win 3 or 4 conference games this year. They stink. This is what you should do to a team that stinks. That team stinks. Justin Tyler, elite free throw shooting team. It's so nice, right? And I think we forgot how this feels sometimes because we had so many years of Tyler Wall struggling so much at the free throw line. So many years of just not being consistently good enough from that spot. This team is so pure there. But that when they miss a shot, when they miss a free throw from the line, like Nolan Winter missed one, and everybody in the crowd groaned. Yeah, because it's like you just don't expect it anymore. This team is so locked in from the line. It's awesome to see. It's absolutely awesome to see. Pedro says Ilver can be Duke. I'm convinced. That would be awesome. I don't think he can. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't think he can. But that would be absolutely awesome if he could be that. I do think he can. We know he can shoot. It's can he shoot without? Can he shoot in the right moments and then move the ball when he should move the ball? And then can he do the other things? Defensively, does he hold up in the pick and roll action? Can he help on the glass? It's those other things that are really going to determine how much he plays going forward. But we know he can shoot the ball. So that's a major trait. A lot of guys his size can't. So if he can just get better at those other things, we know he can absolutely get run on this team. But you got to remember, Douye was a borderline NBA guy. Like Douye got run in the league. Not like a significant role or anything like that, but I believe he played for the Bulls a little bit and maybe somebody else. I don't think Ilver's got that in his bag, but Ilver, I have no doubt that Ilver can be a good college player. Sean Campbell, I want to put this up there because I've seen this discussion a lot. I'm curious what you guys think of it in the chat. Sean says, could Kamari take over Klesman as the starter until he gets his shot flowing, take some pressure off him? Absolutely, he could. To me, I kind of like Kamari coming off the bench. I kind of like Kamari coming off the bench, but getting more minutes, if that makes sense. I've never been a huge fan of, or it's never been huge to me who starts. I think coaches got to manage egos, and whoever kind of needs to start for the culture and the ego thing, which is again where Kamari's just so mature. I don't think that matters to him. It may matter a little bit more to a guy like Klesman who's been starting and then to get relegated to the bench. There's just a certain perspective that goes with that you'd have to be careful of. But I'm okay with Kamari not starting. I would rather have Kamari closing, I guess is my point. Like, I care more who closes games than who starts. So if Kamari, who's been playing about 20 minutes a game, Klesman's been playing about 30 minutes a game. If Klesman starts but plays 25 and Kamari finishes but plays 25, I'm cool with that. That to me is the better path forward, because I do think Kamari could be in some starting lineups. Although I want to point out, Klesman, despite his poor shooting, still draws a lot of gravity. Teams still close out on him like a shooter, and that is very impactful. And he also has upped his assist rate. I believe he has the second highest assist rate on the team behind Steven Crowl. So Klesman, even though he hasn't been a great shooter, has been providing a lot of playmaking. He gets in the paint. He sets people up. He plays hard defensively. So there is value there as well. Saltgani, if you trust Greg, he will develop you. A lot of places you can point to. Like, look at AJ Storr coming over to Wisconsin, having his best year, going to Kansas and basically disappearing. I think that's almost the poster child of it. Brian says, talking about Kamari McGee, loved when they showed him leading the huddle during the timeout. Two things with that. Brian, this isn't such a good point. There's two things with this. Player-led teams, player-led leadership teams are always so much better when you don't have to rely on coaches for leadership. But the other thing here that people need to realize, most coaches have too much of an ego to let that happen in a timeout. Most coaches want that timeout moment, for better or worse. It's not always for worse, right? Because there's some players you don't want talking in timeouts. I can tell you that from experience. There's some players, they want to talk, they want to come out and yell at people, and you just, as a coach, want to be like, no, this is me. Let's get on the whiteboard. Let's draw it up here. But yeah, that's credit to Greg Gard too for not needing to talk in that moment and letting a guy like Kamari McGee lead them. Nate says a bad offensive game for this team is 65 points. Imagine how good Bo's teams would have been if they could average 65 a game. I agree. But imagine how good this team would be if you had Bo's team's defense, right? So it goes both ways. I think it's so hard to drastically increase your offense while keeping your defensive standards at the same spot. It's just really, really difficult because this team is going to run more. They're going to take quicker shots. That's inherently going to lead to a defense that's not quite as sound. And then on top of it, they still lack a couple defensive components here. They lack kind of a wing stopper. Although maybe Xavier Amos is that guy, right? What we saw today was really, really encouraging from a defense standpoint from Xavier Amos. So maybe he could be that guy. Let's see. Any last comments here? We're going to wrap this up. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. This is a fun stretch for Badgers basketball. Ultimately, this is a bad team, but they absolutely waxed them. The Badgers are on a streak here. They've been playing really well. This was a game that's easy to lose. Michigan last year, you can lose to bad teams if you don't take it seriously. You're feeling yourself a little bit. You got some momentum. This is a terrible team coming in. You could sleepwalk through the whole game, and they did for a little bit. Let's be real. But then they turned it on, then they blew them out. So credit for that. This Badgers team is winning. They are winning convincingly, and this offense is a wagon. They're an absolute wagon. Yates says, do the Badgers get ranked next week? I think they're going to work their way back into the back end of the top 25. I do. Because they really don't have a bad loss and they keep racking up wins. Eventually, you're just going to, you just have to start moving back up into that. Pedro says obligatory Kirk Penny appreciation. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Thomas says Gard is definitely a player's coach. On the surface, he seems drab and boring, but I could see us starting to get better players now with this style of offense. That last part's a great point. Now you're starting to expose recruits to this style of offense that they want to play in. How many? I can tell you for a fact, there are players the Badgers haven't gotten because they didn't want to play in that older swing style of offense where you're going to play 20 seconds of defense, 20 seconds of offense. This is going to appeal to people. We haven't always lost guys just because they don't click with this coaching staff or of NIL. We've lost guys because they didn't want to play in this style of system. They didn't feel it showcased them. They didn't feel it was enjoyable. This is going to be interesting to see if this alters us on the recruiting dynamics of players. Anyway, we'll wrap it there on Wisconsin. Appreciate you so much. Go check out Locked On Big Ten, all the biggest stories in the conference over there. All great stuff with NIL playoffs over on Locked On Big Ten on Wisconsin, and we will talk tomorrow.